Hello everyone. Thanks so much for coming along this afternoon to this launch of the Health, the publication that you've all got on your chairs, Health, a Political Choice, Advancing Indigenous People's Rights and Wellbeing. I'd like to start by acknowledging that we're all meeting here on the unceded lands of the Woiwurrung and Bunurong speaking people of the Kulin Nations, and pay my respects to elders past and present, as well as pay my respects to all other Indigenous peoples here today coming to this launch. I'm Professor Kath Chamberlain. I'm a Palawa Trawway woman and Director of ANEMDA, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Health and Wellbeing at the Melbourne School of Population and Global Health, and here with Karen Adams, Professor Karen Adams, a Wiradjuri woman and Director of the Guk Wanduruk, and sorry about pronouncing that, at Monash University, and Ilona Kickbush and Axel Prees, who's have been the guest editors and president of the World Health Summit on this publication that we're really excited to talk to you about today. Karen and I have co-written the editorial for this publication, and we were really excited and really felt pleased to be asked to write this. We were asked in the wake of the failed referendum for a voice for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to have a voice to Parliament and be represented in the Australian Constitution. And so we were feeling pretty, dejected, and still are really after that. But, this publication has really given us a chance to make sure that we do have a voice, and we're certainly going to be taking every opportunity that we have to have a voice and to publish and elevate the voices of Indigenous peoples wherever and whenever we can. Despite the referendum, we're not going to give up that easily. So there's a lot of key points within this publication that really resonate with a whole lot of stuff that we're hearing in the summit. And I'll just pass over to you, Karen.
Yeah, I was just talking to Veronica, who's from Sydney University, just before, and we were reflecting on how lovely it is to come to an event like this that has such a strong Indigenous presence, and to hear sort of our thoughts, our lives, our experiences being validated, because quite often we work in institutions where we're a minority, and you can kind of forget that you're actually part of a bigger movement. And I think this summit has been really amazing to do that. And definitely in this publication, there's a lot of voices in here that are very important. There's a lot of things that people can learn from here, and it really does validate some of the work that's been happening here, but also adds to that as well. So it's really worthwhile reading. Thanks, Kath.
So we've got a lot of thank yous. So thank you, first of all, to all the authors who contributed. It was quite short notice that people were asked to pull together some words of wisdom that they were able to share from all over the world. The authors have contributed, and they're incredibly busy people, so we're incredibly grateful to all of the authors for their contributions, with the wealth of experience and expertise from across the globe that they've really shared, and really, spanning a diverse range of topics as well. We also want to really thank John and Ilona for all your push and motivation to get this going. And for giving us the opportunity to showcase Indigenous voices at this really important event. It's been really, we're really grateful to you for that, and I think we've really shone through in this conference that there is an Indigenous voice that's being heard, which has been really great. And finally, I'd also just want to thank all the sponsors who sponsored it, the Monash University, University of Melbourne and the WHS Institute for partnering on the publication. And I think somewhere on there should be a picture of all the different logos. I think hopefully haven't missed any. I think that's it. So I might just, thank you again for all coming along for this launch, and we'll have an opportunity to ask questions in a minute. And I'm just going to pass over to Ilona now, and then Axel, who are going to say a few words.
Well, thanks very much, Kath, and thank you all for coming as well. We're so delighted that it's worked. This was sitting in customs until about an hour ago. And the wonderful team here organizing the summit actually brought these hard copies here, I hear, about 10, 15 minutes ago. So thank you. So it's not hot off the press, but hot off the customs or something like that. Now, some of you might know this publication, Health: A Political Choice, has been going on for some time. John Curtin from Canada and myself are the editors, and the Health: A Political Choice always tries to take up a key issue and is published on occasion of the Berlin World Health Summit. This year, for the first time, we said, there is such a pressing issue we would like to highlight for the Melbourne Regional Summit that we approached the publishers, the Global Governance Project, and said, would you be willing to move in this direction, even if the funding of the publication is not 100% ensured? And they said yes. They said, we will politically commit to it. And I thought that was absolutely fantastic. And so then we, of course, said, it's not up to John and myself to set the scene for Indigenous health. We need a credible, strong Indigenous co-editor. And there she sits. And a big, big thanks to Kath for taking this on next to all the other duties you had at this point. Kath, thank you very, very much. You can see in the publication that we have quite a global focus, but not totally global, because obviously this is a regional summit. We hope that it'll also be interesting for those of you from this part of the world to maybe look at some of the experiences and examples from colleagues from Lapland or from other areas. What we found just after we had taken the decision that we were actually in a very special situation because, as you will see if you go through the publication, the World Health Assembly had last year, just on initiative of Australia, then together with other countries, had adopted the very first World Health Assembly resolution on Indigenous health. And we thought it important to also reprint this resolution because as we were talking with people, we found many of them had not known this. So you will find that resolution in here. I think also important in relation to the resolution is that the resolution asks WHO to develop an action plan on Indigenous health. And I really, really want to draw your attention to this because, you might see opportunities to be part of this action plan, to raise your voice, to be in contact with WHO. WHO has to report back to its member states on this. And you will see, of course, that the resolution, if you look at the countries that were then part of it, you will also see that Bolivia, Brazil, Canada, Colombia, you'll see particularly Latin American countries were very much in the forefront of supporting it. And that's why we then also because, thank you, they have the G20 presidency right now. We published the country statement by Brazil, and it was also very impressive. I was in the room when the Brazilian delegate who was indigenous then read the statement of Brazil. We've also added the UN resolution on the rights of indigenous people. Many of these things are not yet implemented. As you know, there has just been another big UN meeting last week on the rights of indigenous people. So we were, as we moved on with the publication, we were really happy that at this point in time, we were able to come forward with it. We'd also like to thank the people who did the artwork. We had a long discussion back and forth because we felt, if it's artwork, it should be indigenous artwork. But of course, it was difficult at such short notice to go to an indigenous artist and say, paint something. We found, I think, a good solution that also Kath agreed to, where we, in a more abstract way, took up symbols that are important. The last issue I want to raise is that we were able to gain editorials both from the Director General of WHO, which of course is linked to the World Health Assembly resolution, and from the regional director who was also here with us. So there are a number of political actors that we were also able to convince to write. I leave it to Axel to say what might be ideas for follow-up. You'll see here the dates of the World Health Summit in Berlin. You also see that the subject of the Berlin Summit is trust, but also of health, a political choice. The big publication will be trust. And you can rest assured that also in the, in quotes, big publication, we have every intention of having several contributions from indigenous people. So, not just, let's do a separate publication, but not mention it in the others, but actually be sure that we have that follow through as well. So you see, it says building trust and resilience. And of course, the subject of community resilience has been absolutely central here. You'll see some of the issues also that you have raised here about the decolonization of public health, the issue of violence, particularly the issue of mental health. All these issues, I think, are reflected. And again, I'd like to say thank to Kath and to Karen for the wonderful editorial that you wrote. And it has the wonderful title also, Time to Listen. And I think also a message from this conference has been listen. And so I hand over to Axel to say, how is the World Health Summit listening?
Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you, both of you, all three of you, very much for all the efforts in there, and also John and the publishing house to put it up. I'm certainly not only the least competent person, but I have zero competence in this field. But I thought it was extremely relevant and necessary. And that's why the World Health Summit is supporting it full-heartedly. And when you look at this picture on the beginning, first of all, I have no competence here, but I saw there's more or less an ECG on the right side. And since I'm coming from the cardiology, I was wondering that this is already in the native cultures. But in the middle is the most relevant thing, component of it, that is keeping the earth in your hand and valuing it. And I learned it today in the morning and yesterday in the different sessions which I could attend, that what we have to learn is to respect each other, irrespective of the majority-minority question. and that's probably also in the voting here in Australia. You have to be respectful to communities, irrespective of their size. And we all have to be much more respectful to the earth as a whole. And coming from Europe, I must say that the approach which Europe used over centuries is very progressive, but it's also suicidal if we use it to its full extent. And therefore, if we don't listen and change our ways, there will be no chance for the future of mankind on the earth. And there we have to learn a lot from communities who knew how to do it, have a completely different approach, which we have to learn how to interpret and how to use it and how to combine it. I mean, we would not be here together if we wouldn't have all these developments over the past 200 years. There would be no flight from Berlin to Melbourne, and we wouldn't even know of each other. So there's also a lot which we can gain, but we should find a way where we're not destroying what we see the first time. And that was unfortunately the European approach, that a lot of what they saw was immediately destroyed. And there is a good chance to change that. And therefore I'm really grateful from my heart that this effort has been so successful. And then Ilona said, what could be the future? And the more I listen to these events here and try to understand what is written in this book, I think it's something we have to follow up one way or the other. And we cannot wait until there is a next regional meeting of the World Health Summit coming to Melbourne in 7 or 8 years. So we should take the momentum, and I feel a very strong momentum here at this conference. Therefore, we wanted it to be more or less the prime topic of the conference, and I see the people in these halls here all very enthusiastic and devoted to the topic, and I would be extremely glad if from this momentum there would be a development saying, okay, we want to push it. And obviously the Australia South Pacific region has a lot to offer here, but there's many other cultures in the world. Next year we will be in India. It's the same question. Brazil, we saw it. But I think, like in many things in this world, you need a champion who is willing, like these champions who were willing to put this together. We need a champion saying, okay, on behalf of all the others, we take this topic and make it a continuous stream. So I would be extremely happy if this would be followed up in the yearly fashion by something which happens with a certain focus on this topic to keep it alive, because it's with all these other tensions, like if you see Russia versus US and China, and you only have to open the newspaper and then you have so much bad news that you easily forget about these topics because it's only a minority and only a side effect, and therefore you have to keep it on the agenda, and I would absolutely support it. Thank you very much.
So I think that's all we had planned for formalities, but there's an opportunity now to have some questions if people wanted to ask anything or had any comments or suggestions about what they'd like to see done next. Is it available online?
Oh yes, there's an online version that you can access easily. Please also, since not all seats are filled, do take an extra copy along for a friend if you feel you know somebody. But we just felt, for a launch, it's nice to have something in hand. But of course, the major thing is the online publication, and please also feel free to spread that very widely, because that's the way the message can really get out. Thank you for asking. We forgot all about saying that. And, we had the online version, but we said, no, we want this hard copy.
And it would be good to use the social media to spread it. It should go viral.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
I might just make a quick comment and thank the contributors for bringing this out.
Do we have a mic for Ben? Yes, it's just coming, Ben. It's easier for people to hear you, Ben.
Maybe easy for me too. Thank you. Thanks, Alona. Ben Canning from University of Adelaide. I was just going to make the comment that this is a very timely publication. A number of us involved in delivering health professions education programs are being met with appropriately increasing demands from our accrediting bodies to bolster our training and the like in Indigenous, First Nations, whatever word we want to use, Aboriginal health. And so for me, I just wanted to say this is a very welcome additional publication to aid that work and convince our lords and masters and money holders and whatever that this is something we really have to invest in. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Hopefully this is the start of a conversation, and it's exciting to hear, Axel, what you're talking about it being having something every year as well. I mean, I think we'd all love to make sure that we have a voice for Indigenous peoples. And yesterday at the climate change session, we were talking about the importance of having a seat at the table. That came up a lot. So I think there'd be a lot of people that would be really interested in that. Any other questions or comments? Yeah.
Thank you. I think it's a great title, Health, a Political Choice. You could have called it a moral choice or a human rights choice, or why did you land on political?
Because it's a whole series. We started, I think, 7 years ago with a series on health, a political choice. And then, so that's the top title of the whole series. And this is, as I say, one that is usually is issued every October at the World Health Summit. This is the first one that's in between at a regional summit. And so we did want to keep our overall sort of identity. But on the other hand, particularly as we were talking around voice and all these other issues, some of this is a political choice, and it is also a statement that the Director General of WHO has adopted very strongly, that he says there's very clearly political determinants of health, and that the situation we are in relation to health, to right to health, etc., are political choices that governments make. And therefore, this is sort of our brand. Health is a political choice. But I must say, with the voice referendum, and no matter what its outcome would have been, we didn't know that at that stage, but it was clear, that's a political statement, what that outcome is.
And maybe this word political is including what you say, because politics is what we all do together. It's not what the politicians do. Politics is from us and for us, and therefore it has to be moral. And I think that's also in the meaning of this. We have to drive politics, and therefore we need a seat at the table, and so on and so forth. And we cannot leave, politics is too important to leave it to the politicians.
When Kath and I were talking about what to write in here for the editorial, I looked up actually what the word political means, because I'm a bit like that. And I actually found out that, which I didn't know, that politic actually means wise. and to be impolitic means to be unwise or a problem maker. And I think for Indigenous people, politics is, we're just impacted by it. Like colonisation brings politics with it and logics. And we've heard a lot of Indigenous people talking about that at this summit. And so it's very, very relevant, I think. We look at what's happening to First Peoples in Gaza. We're looking at, what's happened in Australia, look at what's happening in New Zealand at the moment. It's all about politics. So I think it's very relevant and meaningful. Any other questions or comments?
Hello, I just want to say thank you for your presentation and for talking about this topic. I was just wondering, because you talk about having a seat at the table, but I'm just wondering in terms of operating from within systems or outside of systems, how is it possible to create change if there are no opportunities, or if institutions and peoples aren't necessarily aligned with the change that we want to make? How can it be possible to create change from within or outside of institutions and systems? Thank you.
Well, let's have a whole seminar.
If anybody can write a book about that, that'd be great. I can just talk from my own experience of trying to create equity within a university sector, or I've also worked in the Aboriginal community controlled sector. I think you've got to be strategic. You've got to get people together. You've got to work as a collective. And the worst thing that you can be doing, I think, if you're trying to create better equity is do it on your own. You need people around you who can support you, who are like-minded, and can encourage you. And I was on a panel earlier today and with Paparani Reid, and she was a mentor for me. I wouldn't have been able to do what I did without her. So I think it's about bringing the collective together, minds, and you've just got to chip away at it. We're not going to get anywhere if we don't do anything. So, I'm a big fan of chipping away at things, and it's taken decades for me to change some things in a university, but it can happen. It can be slow and frustrating, but it can happen. But once again, if anybody writes a book about that, I'd be really happy.
That's why we're all here.
There are a number of political science books about this. But I think also one important thing, and this is indirectly, I think you alluded to it, is that there are always people within organizations that want change. Very frequently, people outside of organizations think that's a homogenic block and nobody inside wants any change. And I must say also, when I was working at the World Health Organization, the strategy of having people in the organization who want change combined with people from the outside, which could be different, could be NGOs, could be certain people in member state delegations, etc., who want a change, that creating a dynamics of that nature, and actually to some extent the outside being more radical than the inside, actually creates a dynamic that does allow for change at certain points. And so I think that's one way, at least, of moving forward. It very much depends on governance systems, of course, how open or how closed they are. And but the start is always actually, those within organizations to look around themselves, each and every one of us, to say who actually has voice. And if there are gaps, now we've seen over the last years that, again, I use the UN system because that's where I do a lot of my work. At first instance, it was, there was no voice for women, and that has improved. Now, UN organizations, also the World Health Summit, has seen there is not enough voice for young people, and that has improved. It's still not there, but has improved. And I think with, particularly in the health sector, with now the WHO resolution and the awareness we're creating here and other things, that, you know, we can increase the voice and the seat at the table of Indigenous people around the world. And some countries are better at it than others, so we have to share experiences and we have to push it forward.
Yeah, and I think a conference like this, or maybe a future plan, can be very instrumental, because, as it was said, if you do it alone, it's very hard work. If you do it with a mentor and a group around, it's much easier. But then coming together in a larger group, setting standards, they reflect back to the institutions, because it's no longer an individual viewpoint, it's something which has a certain backing by a community, and therefore such conferences or meetings are relevant, because they show to all the officials in the institutions, when they are balancing the different priorities, that there is something they have to take very seriously. And that's also a reason why I was suggesting that, because it will keep it on the agenda, and it will keep it moving, and it will also reflect to the individual institutions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. My name is Tasdeeq. I'm a PhD student at Monash University, and I definitely want to thank World Health Summit for giving me the platform in 2016. I was the young physician leader where I met Ilona for the first time, and then I got New Voices in Global Health Award in 2017, and it's created me, my background in public health. The reason I'm talking about this is like the discrimination I've seen in Bangladesh towards Indigenous people. That's the reason I love the name A Political Choice, because it is indeed true for many countries, including my country. I remember incidents where during COVID, our government was developing a lot of health promotional material in Bangla to, like aware people what you need to do, what not. And when, as a public health professional, I asked them, do we have anything in Indigenous language? They said, one of the, I can remember the name clearly, I don't say that. He said, it's not our priority. It's a very, very powerful statement. They clearly said that Bangla is our priority because 90% of the population they can understand, but Indigenous or tribal languages, it's not the priority for them. So this is happening. This is true. I want to know from Axel specifically, like if World Health Summit is strategizing or thinking of including voices from Indigenous communities from countries like Bangladesh, where the number of Indigenous communities are very low. And second, if we can think of creating platform like New Voices in Global Health or young physician leaders only targeting Indigenous population, like just a small portion where we can keep them on board and hear from them and award, like kind of inspiring them. Thank you.
Yeah, certainly we are very open to push it in that direction. We might not have the mechanisms right now, but please contact us, and then we find out what could be done in this direction. Also the World Health Summit as an organization needs a push from within, like Ilona said, but also from outside. So we are happy to get this push from your side.
We have, though, I can say, which relates particularly to Bangladesh, we have been talking to the colleagues from the M8 Alliance who will organize next year's regional summit. I think we can say that it will be in India. We have no dates yet. But we have said we would like to see this on the agenda. And of course, then the issue would be to look at representation from Indigenous groups from the 11 countries in the WHO Southeast Asia region, which obviously includes Bangladesh. So that's already one way we can do it. What I really liked was your suggestion, and we will pass this on because we work with many women's groups and we work with many youth groups in the World Health Summit, and to actually tell them, would you look at your selection of young people to the World Health Summit, because they put together these delegations, and can you be sure there is Indigenous representation, that you take that into account. So that is something we can do from our side as well to encourage that. And for us, of course, it's a message as we put together panels to be sure that on certain panels there is an Indigenous voice, etc., etc. So it'll be, a pathway, but I think also for us something serious and important has started here. And therefore we are very, very happy, as Axel has said, for suggestions from your side as to, both small and large steps that one could do going forward.
Okay, well, I think that's about it for today. So thank you so much for coming in. We really hope that you all enjoy reading the publication and the start of more conversations to go. Thank you.
Thank you.